chapter 3, or book 3, chapter 53, continuing with 37. As the false appearance of a snake in a rope is attended with no motion or action of the serpent, so the unreal views of Leela's husband and others were only the motionless images of her own imagination. Whoever views the false apparitions of the dead as present before the vision of his mind, he must know them as reflections of his past and constant memories of them. So our notions of all these worlds are mere products of our memories. They are not any creation of Brahma or from any other cause, but the simple productions of our desire. They who are ignorant of the knowledgeable Spirit of God have in them only the notions of the outer world as they view the distant orb of the moon within themselves. So what we're hearing from Saraswati is that our individual karmic traces, which are recorded in our consciousness, in the DNA, in the prana body, in the manomaya kosha, as knowledge constructs. These are memories. Our memories are literally derived from our individual karmic traces. And that all of the things that have occurred in past lives are not the creation of Brahma. They are the individual creation of the dream creatures. Brahma created a replica of Goloka. Like an empty field, a universe without any beings, just a beautiful scenery. And then he created human beings. He created 24 human beings. In 20 of those human beings, 10 couples, male and female, he gave the responsibility of procreating and creating billions and billions of other human beings. And the lives of all these human beings is recorded in their individual karmic traces. So this is what we're learning from Saraswati here. So it's an interesting insight into how the universe operates. Chapter 54. Divine laws underlie creation. Death as reward, life durations. The goddess continued. Therefore, those who know the knowable God and rely upon virtue can go to spiritual worlds, not others. All material bodies are false. the false conceptions of the mind. They can have no place in truth, just like no shadow can have any room in sunshine. So gross matter has no room in the subtle spirit. Young Leela, being ignorant of the knowable God and unacquainted with the highest virtue, the practice of yoga, meditation, could go no further than the city of her Lord, which she had in her heart. The waking Leela said, "Let her be where she is, but I will ask you about other things. You see here that my husband is about to die. Tell me, what must I do now? Tell me the law of being and not being of beings, and about the destiny which destines living beings to death. What determines the nature of things and gives existence to the categories of objects? What causes the warmth of fire and sun and gives stability to the earth? Why is the coldness confused, confined to frost and the like? And what forms the essence of time and space? What are the causes of the different states of things and their various changes? And the causes of the solidity of some and minuteness of others? What causes trees and men to be taller than grass and bramble? And why do many things dwindle and decay in the course of capability of growth? The goddess said, at the universal dissolution of the world, when all things are dissolved in the formless void, only the essence of Brahman remains in the form of infinite sky, stretching on all sides beyond the limits of creation. Then it reflects in its consciousness in the form of a spark of fire, as you are conscious of your aerial journey in a dream. Then this atomic spark in the divine spirit increased in size and having no substance of itself, appeared as what is commonly called the ideal world. So this is a very clear exposition of the emergence of Goloka as our universe from the memory of the Creator, Lord Brahma. Saraswati says it comes like as if a dream, as you are conscious of your aerial journey in a dream. So there's no doubt this is exactly how the universe arises in the consciousness of the Creator. This also points out the importance of dreaming, It is through lucid dreaming that we can literally relate to and have the experience that is happening right now as the Creator is creating this universe. This helps to build a bridge in consciousness between us as individual human beings, dream creatures in the grander scheme of things, and the divine super consciousness that is the substrate of our universe. By building that bridge in consciousness, we then have a way to cross that bridge and assume the position of the Creator of the universe. Then we have achieved self-realization, Brahman consciousness. So the lucid dream, extremely important experience. This is why in our Sahasra Sirsha Brahma meditation, we are focusing for the entire time, except for a few minutes at the beginning, on inducing a waking lucid dream. The process of Sandhima is that process of creating a lucid dream within our own consciousness. And it is the process that is going on right now in the mind of the Creator of this universe. So we are replicating in our own individual consciousness what is going on in the mind of the Creator. This is building, structuring connections to restore our ultimate connection as the Creator of this universe. It's a very interesting and profound approach that leads directly to Brahman consciousness. This is we practice in our meditation every day. So it's a highly optimized way of balancing the individual karmic traces that stand between what we believe we are and what we really are as the Creator of this universe. Verse 12, the Spirit of God thought itself as Brahma, the soul of the world, who reigned over it in his form of the mind, as if it was identical with the real world itself. Whatever primary laws he appointed to all things at their first creation, they invariably continue in force with them to the present time. The minds of all turn as willed by the divine mind. There is nothing which of itself can go beyond the law assigned to it by the divine will. So here we're learning another important point. As we rise to Brahman consciousness, experiences that we're having are experiences within the divine mind. And the universe created within the divine mind is a dream, an illusion. It is not real. Reality is that which is beyond this universe. Reality is that which is Goloka. Reality is Krishna. So even though we're achieving what appears to be an exalted state of consciousness, Brahman consciousness, we're just at the beginning of our journey, aren't we? We have finally come to realize the consciousness that we exhibit as this universe. And we have come to realize that that consciousness that we exhibit as this universe is illusory. It is not real. We still find ourselves existing. Anything that exists, which means existing means to stand out from, to be independent. This is a very fundamental understanding. If something exists, it is an illusion. So even though we are the creator of this universe, we are still in illusion. We are in an illusion of this universe. It's very similar to the illusion that we all have as individual human beings as we perceive the world around us. When we see the world around us, each one of us, each human being sees a slightly different thing because of the coloration of individual karmic traces. We don't even see the illusion around us truly. We see it through tinted glasses, through individual karmic traces. Now, when we connect with the silent witness, we are connecting with literally a surrogate of the silent witness, aren't we? We're connecting with the silence that's within the mind of the Creator, the silent witness of the Creator. That's what we're connecting with. Now, fortunately, that silence within the divine mind connects with the true silent witness. And that true silent witness is Krishna. So we have some connection with Krishna as we connect with the silent witness. And we perceive eternity, we perceive unbounded awareness in that silence. But as we proceed on our path to true annihilation of existence, yoga, then we realize even the silent witness is just an illusion within the mind of the Creator. We have to transcend everything. to get to the truth. And the truth is only Krishna. We do not exist as individual beings. Verse 15. It is improper to say that all formal existences are nothing, because they remain in their substance of the divine spirit after their forms disappear. Just like the substance of gold remains the same after its shape and form are altered. The elementary bodies of fire and frost continue in the same state as when their elements were first formed in the divine mind in the beginning of creation. Therefore, as long as divine consciousness continues to direct his eternal laws and decrees appointed to all, nothing has the power to forsake its own nature. It is impossible for anything to alter its nature from the eternal stamp that divine will has set upon all the substantial and ideal forms of creation. As divine consciousness knows no opposition, it never turns from the tenor of its own wanted intelligence and directs the destinies of all. But know that in the first place, the world is not a created thing. All that appears to exist is only a display of the notions in our consciousness, like appearances in our dreams. The unreal appears as real, just like the shadow seems to be of substance. Our notions of things are properties of our nature. The manner in which consciousness exhibited itself in its different manifestations at the beginning, the same continues in its course to this time and is known as the manifestations of consciousness, Samvit-Kachana, or the course or system of the universe, which constitute the niyati. The sky is the manifestation of the intellectual idea of emptiness in the divine mind. The idea of duration in consciousness appeared in the form of the parts of time. The idea of liquidity evolved itself in the form of water in the divine mind. In the same way, one dreams of water and sees in his own mind. We are conscious of our dreams in some particular state of our consciousness. And it is the wonderfully cunning nature of consciousness that makes us think the unreal to be real. The ideas of reality of earth, air, fire, and water are all false. Consciousness perceives them within itself as its false dreams and desires and daydreams. So this is the most clear and explicit explanation of the illusion around us that we take for reality. By having this intellectual understanding that all we see around us is illusion, it gives us the connection to the consciousness of the Creator, which ultimately is who we are. And it helps to bridge that gap, close that gap, and create a union with the Creator. Verse 27. Now hear me tell you about death in order to remove your questions with regard to this future state. Death is destined for our good in that it leads us to the enjoyment of the fruits of acts in this life. Our lives are destined in the beginning to extend to 1, 2, 3, and 4 centuries in the different Kali, Dvipara, Trita, and Satya Yugas of the world. Now here what we're seeing is a reference to the different lifespans in the different yugas. In Kali Yuga, the lifespan is 1 century. And then it says in Dvipara Yuga, the lifespan is 2 centuries. In Trita, 3 centuries. And in Satya, 4 centuries. That's different from what we read in other places. The reason it is told in this way is to give the understanding of the different length of lifespan in each of the yugas. But we know, for example, the lifespan in Dvipara Yuga from the history that has been recorded in other scriptures is approximately 1,000 years or 10 centuries. So this is not a mistake. It is simply an illustration that in each yuga, the lifespans are different and increasing as we go to Dvipara, Trita, and Satyuga. However, by virtue of place and time, of climate and food, and our good or bad actions and habits, human life extends above or descends below these limits. Falling short of one's duties shortens life, as exceeding in them lengthens its duration. Mediocre conduct keeps it within its proper bound. Children die by acts causing infant diseases and untimely deaths. The young and old die of acts that bring on juvenile and senile weakness, sickness, and ultimate death. He who goes on doing his duties as prescribed by scriptures becomes prosperous and enjoys the long life allocated by the rule of scriptures. Likewise, men meet their last state and future reward according to the nature of their acts in lifetime. Or else their old age is subject to regret and remorse and all kinds of bodily and mental maladies and anxieties. Leela said, "Tell me in short, O moon-faced goddess, something more with regard to death. Is it a pleasure or pain to die? What becomes of us after we are dead and gone from here?" The goddess replied, "Dying men are of three kinds. They have three different ends upon their death. They are ignorant, those practiced in yoga, and those who are reasonable and religious. Those practicing dharana yoga, remember dharana is the process of thinking a mantra, may go wherever they like after leaving their bodies. And so the yogi of reason is at liberty to range everywhere. He who has not practiced dharana yoga or has not applied himself to reasoning or entertains certain hopes for the future is called an ignorant sot and meets with the pain and pangs of death. He whose mind is not subdued and is full of desires, temporal cares, and anxieties becomes as distressed as a lotus torn from its stalk. The mind that is not guided by the precepts of the scriptures or purified by holiness, but is addicted to the society of the wicked, is subjected to the burning sensation of fire within itself at the moment of death. At the moment when the last gurgling of the throat chokes the breath, eyesight is dim, and the countenance fades away, then the rational soul also becomes hazy in its consciousness. A deep darkness spreads over the dimming sight, and stars twinkle before it in daylight. The sky appears to be hidden by clouds and presents a gloomy aspect on every side. An acute pain seizes his entire body, and a mirage caused by witchcraft dances before his vision. The earth is turned into air, and the dying person seems to be moving in midair. The spheres of heaven revolves before him, and the tide of the sea seems to bear him away. He is lifted up in the air, then hurled down as in his state of dizziness or dream. Now he thinks he is falling into a dark pit, and then he is lying in the cave of a hill. He wants to talk out loud about his torments, but his speech fails to utter his thought. Now he finds himself as if falling down from the sky, and now is whirled in the air like a bundle of straw blown aloft by a gust of wind. He is now riding swiftly as in a car, and now finds himself melting like snow. He desires to tell his friends about the evils of life in this world, but he is carried away from them as rapidly as if by an air engine. He whirls about like a turning wheel and is dragged along like a beast by its halter. He wallows about like in an eddy or turns around as the machine of some engine. He is borne like straw in the air and is carried about like a cloud in the wind. He rises high like a vapor, then falls down like a heavy, watery cloud, pouring out into the sea. He passes through endless space and revolves in all of its vortices of emptiness to find, as it were, a place free from the ups and downs to which earth and ocean are subject. Thus the rising and falling spirit wanders ceaselessly, and the soul, breathing hard and sighing without a break, sets the whole body in sore pain and agony. By degrees, the objects of his senses become as faint to his failing organs as the landscape fades to view with the setting of the sun. At this moment, his memory fails, and he loses memories of the past and present, like one is at a loss to know the sides of the compass after the evening twilight has passed away. In his fainting fit, his mind loses its power of thinking. He is lost in a state of ignorance, the loss of all his thoughts and consciousness. In his fainting state, the vital breath ceases to circulate through the body. When its circulation stops completely, a swoon into unconsciousness, murcha, follows. Then this state of unconscious paralysis, combined with delirium, has reached its climax. Then by the law of inertia, ordained for all living beings from the beginning, the body becomes as stiff as stone. Leela said, "But tell me, O goddess, why do these pains and agonies, this fainting and delirium, and disease and unconsciousness overtake the body when it is possessed of all its 8 organs intact?" The goddess replied, "It is the law appointed by the author of life from the first, that such and such pains are to fall as the lot of living beings at such and such time. Primeval sin springs of itself like a plant in the conscious heart of man and subjects him to his doomed miseries, which have no other intelligible cause." So what we're being told here is that all of these miseries of life, pains and suffering, arise from primeval sin, which is karmic traces, original karmic traces. The original sin or karma or action is literally the thought that I am existing. That thought, I exist, fractures the wholeness that was and still is Krishna. It's a little bit like one skin cell, very tiny, you can only see it clearly in a microscope, makes a decision that it is an independent being, not a part of this body. And then that decision detaches itself from the body, and what happens to it? It has a pretty hard time maintaining its life, doesn't it? So that's what's happened. At some point, if we trace ourselves back to our primeval mistake, the pragya, it was just a mistake of the intellect. The intellect identifying itself as Krishna suddenly, or perhaps not suddenly, but at some point, identified itself as individual. And that started the whole thing. Verse 59. When disease and its pain overpowers the body and prevents lungs and arteries from expanding and contracting, to inhale and exhale air, the body loses its equilibrium, samana, and becomes restless. When inhaled air does not come out and exhaled breath does not re-enter the lung, all pulsation is at a stop. Organic sensations are lost, remaining only in memory. When vital air does not enter or exit, the pulse sinks and becomes motionless. The body is said to become senseless and life to be extinct. Saraswati is saying, I also shall die in my destined time. But all my consciousness of former knowledge will be awake at the hour of death. Although I am dead and gone from here in this manner, yet I must mind that the seed of my innate consciousness, the soul, is never destroyed with my life and body. Consciousness is the inner knowledge and is imperishable in its nature. Therefore, the nature of consciousness is free from birth and death. In some persons, the consciousness is as clear as a fresh fountain. In others, as foul as tide water. In some, it is bright in its form of the pure intellect, chit. But in many, in its nature of the sentient or individual soul, Chaitanya. It is polluted with passions of animal life.